Snoop Dogg and D.I.
Hello and welcome to Villanova Tip Time. I'm your host, Chris Notaro. Today is Saturday, March 5th, and it's a very happy Catterday as we are here ahead of number 11 Villanova taking on Butler at Hinkle Fieldhouse, which has become something of a lore for Cats fans, which we'll talk about here momentarily. Today we're going to wrap up our second regular season of Villanova Tip Time, and we're going to go around the horn a little bit different than we normally do. Number one, we have some announcements to talk about around the Big East tournament. Number two, we're going to do a little season interview, talk about the top storylines. Then, like normal, we'll reintroduce Butler. We'll talk about keys to the game, and then we'll send you off to Fox at the top of the hour. So the first thing I want to talk about is New York City and the Big East tournament next week. So the Villanova Alumni Association and the Villanova Club of New York City has made Crompton Ales on 26th and 7th the Villanova bar for the Big East tournament. This is exciting for Cats fans for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have a pregame meetup spot around the Garden for any Cats fan, whether you're going to the game or not, but especially all of you that are going to be moseying over to the Garden to watch the game in person. They're also going to have a game watch at this bar for fans that choose not to attend the game. And I'm really excited to announce that I'm going to be participating in a live pregame show led by the guys from the Full 40. The show's going to be on Thursday at 5 p.m. We're going to end it around 6 or 6:15, somewhere in that corridor there. We're going to give you plenty of time to walk over to the game, just a few blocks north. And as I wind my second season of Tip Time down, I'm really just so incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to participate in this very legit event. One of the reasons that I started doing this, or the only reason really that I started doing this, was to be able to eventually, maybe the pipe dream was one day participate in like legit Villanova basketball events. A lot of people laughed at me when I started this pregame show, and when I've kept it up, I've really appreciated the support from a lot of my friends who tune in, very regularly, and new friends that I've made along the way that have come to find, me and what I'm doing with Tip Time. So I just want to say I'm really appreciative to have this opportunity and looking forward to being there in New York with the guys from the Full 40 on Thursday. Again, that'll be at 5 o'clock at Crompton Ales. So make sure you stop by, whether you're going to the game or not. So let's get into season in review, and really just want to kind of talk through some of the top storylines, because there's going to be plenty of season in review talk. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it at the live shows. It's going to be, obviously there's going to be plenty of time for that when the season's over, which we hope is after New Orleans, right? But just some of the top storylines of this regular season. I think number one, I would start with the fifth-year seniors, Colin Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels. Colin Gillespie coming off of that devastating MCL injury. What more can you say about him? He's been Mr. Clutch. He's hit some huge games. He's hit some huge shots. None bigger than the sort of that picturesque. It's like almost like a stand in time moment from this season with the step back three that he made at Providence late to ice that game. It's really just been amazing. I think as Villanovans, you look at people like Colin Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels, and you're just proud of the caliber of individuals that Coach Wright and this program continues to crank out, but less so about the program and more so about the individuals. It's been such a pleasure to watch Colin Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels play basketball, and for Colin Gillespie, what a swan song of fifth year it's been, and it's definitely been one of the top storylines of the season. I think next I want to talk about the emergence of Eric Dixon and what a revelation he's been. Coming into the season was sort of a question mark. A lot of talk about Nova being undersized. Nobody expected Eric Dixon to be as good as he's been. He's absolutely played his way into the conversation for most improved player in the Big East. And it really, I can't say this about enough members of this team. He's just been a joy to watch play basketball. His footwork, his touch around the rim has steadily improved game by game. Sure, he still has some off nights or misses a couple bunnies here and there, but he's just become such a reliable low post option. You have to be really, you can be nothing but thrilled with what we've seen from Eric Dixon this year, and the fact that he's only a freshman by eligibility standards. He's got 3 more years ahead of him, so he's got a pretty high ceiling based on the growth that we saw this year. I think the last storyline I want to hit is the Caleb Daniels sort of avenging himself, right? Nobody really knew what was going on with him last season down the stretch. He dealt with COVID, and then he looked not his best, really throughout the rest of last season. And I think a lot of Cats fans were quick to jump on him as a less than talented player than we thought that he was. And that just wasn't the case. The man was battling. He was battling through some real serious health issues and taking it all humbly and on the chin and not using it as an excuse. And then this year he has been excellent, averaging 10 points a game. Coach regularly calls him a 6th starter. If you're not rooting for Caleb Daniels, I don't know what to tell you. I also just recently, I want to point out, he missed a big free throw down the stretch against UConn, right? That people were really upset about. And then this past game against Providence, he hit a bunch of huge free throws. He was perfect on huge free throws down the stretch. So even when he kind of makes his small missteps, he almost always comes back from them almost immediately with a huge contribution. So as we look ahead to the Big East tournament, Nova's locked into the 2nd seed and the night game. Hallelujah. So much better than the noon game. There's been a lot of arguments with people like that. I think maybe I'm biased because I'm traveling in, so I would prefer a more preferential time for the game. It's interesting that there's a big asterisk on the line today for Providence. If Nova wins today at Butler, they're going to finish at the top of the table. So even though Providence still won the regular season, legitimately based on win percentage with the COVID ruling, right, and that did benefit Nova last year, this year, considering Nova finishes at the top of the table, beats Providence twice, it's definitely, earned you some jestful ribbing of the Providence fans in your lives to remind them that, even when Providence wins the Big East, they didn't really win the Big East. Alas, hats off to them. They're a good team. Excited to see them in the Big East tournament. Hope we get a rematch on the Saturday night. It's good for the Big East. It's good for basketball when Providence is good. So, hats off to them. As far as NCAA tournament outlook goes, I'll cover this real quick because if you haven't been following Brendan Riley's VU Hoops daily breakdown of where the Cats sit in the seeding, in the current up to the minute seeding, you're doing it wrong. It's just sort of your guide to where we're going to end up. Between Brendan and other bracketologists, they mostly have Nova between the 9th and the 10th overall seed right now, which would both be 3 seeds and would both almost certainly, help Villanova get that 3 seed in the East so that they could play in Philly, much to the chagrin of whoever gets the 1 and 2 seeds. So interesting to watch. Obviously, we've got to win today. We've got to take care of business today. Probably are going to have to win at least 1 or 2 games in the Big East tournament to sort of hold that preferential seed line as the top of the 3 seeds, which will net them that spot in the East. So now I want to get into reintroducing Butler, and I would be remiss if I didn't start by talking about the boogeyman at Hinkle Fieldhouse. It's been much discussed across Nova Twitter, across all the Nova content outlets that put out their great pregame analysis. It's been a widely discussed topic. Now, I will say, I choose to remember the Darren Hilliard buzzer beater nearly a decade ago now, but many Cats fans instead are remembering some of the more recent performances, including the one where Nova was ranked number 1 and Butler shot the lights out, and it was like one of those games where you just wanted to break your TV. They shot 70% from deep on 15 made threes, and it was just like, it was almost like it was similar to one of those Creighton games with McDermott years ago in Omaha, and except in this one that I'm talking about with Butler, like Nova also scored 93 points, but they gave up 101 points. Nova's 1-4 in their last 5 trips into Hinkle. We'll point out that they were 3-0 in early post-realignment years. They were 3-0, so things were looking good at Hinkle for a minute, and then we've been 1-4 since. Most of these losses occur for Nova as a top 10 team, albeit to Butler teams that have been considerably better via KenPom than they are this year. The lone aberration to that is last year, the Ken Palm rankings for both teams were about the same. This is not last year, though, because that was like right after that devastating loss of Colin Gillespie to an MCL injury. So I have to think the VU Hoops preview said like this is those are just numbers, and it's true. It's true. I think this team's going to come in today with a fire in their belly to go strong into the postseason. Alas, and that being Villanova, of course. So the story of Butler, the team's year this year, they've been 13-17 overall. They're 6-13 in the Big East. They're currently tied for 9th place in the Big East. A win today could help them jump to Paul for that 9 seed in the Big East tournament. A loss is going to lock them into the 10. And really the story of their year has just been a lack of scoring. They really struggled to score despite having a 9-deep rotation, but they lack a really consistent scoring threat. They've only averaged 63 points a game. They play okay defense, not bad, but not great. They defend the perimeter well, so I think that'll be a test for Nova again today, even though Nova absolutely shot the lights out against them in their first matchup, which I'll talk about in a moment. Generally speaking, Butler does play pretty solid three-point defense overall on the whole this season. So guys to know are going to be guards Chuck Harris and Bo Hodges are the only guys averaging even double figures. Both of them averaging are just over 10 points a game. Bryce Ncaa hasn't looked the same after coming back from injuries from last season and the offseason. He's only averaging 8.6 a game. And then there's a smattering of other names you're going to recognize. Forward Bryce Golden, guard Aaron Thompson, guard Jair Bolden. All these guys can get hot at any given time. So, with a game like today where you just Hinkle can be a tough place to play. They've played some good games. They've had some good wins at Hinkle in the last month. There are a lot of guys that can hurt you if you're Nova, so you do not want to be taking this game lightly or like a rollover. And I think, honestly, just because of the narrative around Hinkle, I do not think the Nova team is going to do that. I think Nova is going to come in today pretty focused. The last time this team played, I can't believe it took me this long to even get to this. The last time they played, Nova won by 40. They had their biggest win of the year earlier in the season at the Pavilion. So, both teams have a boogeyman to avenge here, with Nova, trying to get over the Hinkle boogeyman, and Butler trying to avenge a 40-point embarrassing loss. Like that fires guys up. So keys to the game. I don't know if I've said the word Hinkle enough, but that Hinkle voodoo, right? Coach Wright said it's not about the building; it's respect to the Butler program. He said everything you expect Coach Wright to say. I think just based on how Butler has been playing at Hinkle over the last month, this is not going to be a walkover of a game. This is likely not going to be a 40-point game like it was early in the season, and that's okay. The most important thing is grinding out a win, playing good defense, etc. The second key to the game is shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets. We joke. Shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets. We joke because when is that not a key to the game for Villanova? But as VU Hoops preview from Brian Graves pointed out, this team is really hard to beat when two or more of their scorers get going. And they're really easy to beat when everybody's cold. That doesn't sound like rocket science, but it's been very true against Butler at Hinkle, where that's just sort of an X factor. So the shooting goes, so too goes the victor. And then lastly, I want to point out a key to the game is we want to see really good defense lockdown today. Butler doesn't play great offense. It's a perfect practice opportunity for the much bigger games to come, not to be overlooked. So this is where I want to leave you. I'm going to close out my second regular season of Villanova Tip Time. Reminder, I'll be at the Big East Tournament in New York City, so there's not going to be a traditional Tip Time episode next weekend ahead of any of the Big East Tournament games, most likely. So the next time I see you, better be at the live show in New York City on Thursday night at Crompton Ales. Again, the show's at 5 p.m. Get over to Fox, grab a beverage, even if it's a coffee. I'm your host, Chris Notaro. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tip Time.